Welcome to Backyards and Bevvies. Grab your favorite bevy, pull up a chair, and enjoy the ride. Hey, B&B fam. This podcast is sponsored to you by BetterHelp, H-E-L-P. Is there something getting in the way of your happiness? I know when I traveled the world, I had many days where BetterHelp's worldwide service of licensed professional therapists could have helped me speak to someone no matter where I was in the world about whatever was happening with my life, and with zero judgment. With their ability to match me with a therapist that best fits me, I know my mental health would have been way better back then. Believe me, I needed it. But I'm here to share a way for you to take back control of your mental health by telling you about BetterHelp's awesome services they have for you to talk with a pro about your life through their app or just online. Whether it is a video session or some simple messaging, their team is here to help. I went to check out the app for myself just to see how easy it was to use, and after a series of questions, I was told I would be able to start matching with a therapist in under 48 hours. And what is super rad is that it's affordable and they even offer financial aid too. So come join the 2 million users that have already been helped and gain back control of your mental health by visiting betterhelp.com/backyards for 10% off your first month. Remember, BetterHelp is therapy done securely online. Don't forget to use the special code BACKYARDS and let BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, help you to start living a happier life today. Welcome to Backyards and Bevvies.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. Tonight on our first evening edition. I'm going to go with it's nighttime.
Of Backyards and Bevvies.
It's like
it is nighttime.
Late right now. I mean,
for us.
Might as well be 1 a.m. right now.
That's very true. It feels like it. 100%.
That that parent life is kind of funny.
It really is.
And being like 40 and having young kids, it's even
very young kids.
Funnier.
Funnier.
Because a lot of our friends have already gone through a lot of these phases, and we are just venturing down this lovely path.
I know.
It is lovely.
It is.
Some days, lovely is a metaphor for shit.
But most days, it's actually very lovely.
It is. It is funny that the days go so fast because you're just constantly doing something, and especially if we've talked about it before. You go to work, so you leave, so your day has a little bit of differentiation. It's broken up. You get to go sit in a car for an hour or 30 minutes. Or
super fun.
I didn't say it's fun, but it definitely breaks up the monotony of staring
being
at
stuck in the house.
4 walls.
Yes.
And that is a good thing, because I think that also helps your day kind of widen. Mm-hmm. Some days I sneeze and it's 8 o'clock at night.
And it's like, whoa, where'd the day go?
Whoa, I just woke up.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything today. But in reality, I did a lot
of things.
Yeah. It's weird. And I feel like when I was out on tour, you just went out on a small tour.
I did.
I shouldn't say small.
Big tour. I just went out briefly.
Blake Shelton is
not small.
He's coming. He's going to be big one day.
Yeah,
right?
Coming up in the world.
He's on the up.
On the up.
Yeah, I think I've heard him on the radio before.
Yeah.
He's on a semi-popular TV show.
Yeah. Multi-Emmy award winning.
Has
28 number one songs.
Does he win an Emmy for it, or does the show win an Emmy?
The show wins Emmys. Yeah.
Gotcha. He's just a character on the show, right?
A personality, I guess.
Personality, yeah, that'd be
a coach.
A coach. Well, I know he's a coach, but I knew there was a specific term to his life on that show. Yeah,
his last season.
Last hoorah.
Woo. Coming up.
Yeah, he's probably happy. Probably has a lot going on.
He's ready.
Yeah.
He does have a lot going on, for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, you went out there. You got to experience what I was just going to say, though, is that I felt like touring always went, like a day went fast. It would sometimes start slow. You'd be like, oh, man.
And then all of a sudden you blink and it's 3:30 and you're like, oh my gosh, it's time for sound check.
Doors are in 10 minutes. Like,
yeah. When did this happen?
What do you mean doors are in 10 minutes? I barely just got the opening act on.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel every day. Some days I feel like I have 10 minutes, and some days it's a 5-minute day.
You're on the baby tour.
I am on the baby tour.
The baby
tour.
You know,
and like we said, I think on the last show, being a stay-at-home dad comes with many, many challenges, I feel like. And they're not typical, I think, to what a lot of people are used to. Because for generations, it was the female that stayed at home. And I think guys now, it's more, I'm not going to say popular, but it's becoming more of a thing. You hear
more
more
common.
well, and two, like, companies let people work at home now. So, you get more parents at home, I should say, too.
Yeah.
And I don't know any of the numbers, but I'm sure it's bigger than it ever has been in the history of the world.
I'm sure.
Except maybe in like caveman days when both parents were home. They just killed the saber-toothed tiger.
Yeah.
And, they're able to
had meat for weeks.
We don't have to leave for 4 days. We're good. But yeah, so my day though, it's interesting, and we were talking about it on a very specific thing because on Friday, something kind of crazy happened. Was I finished the book and turned it into a lady who is a publisher.
Yeah, we did. We turned in an edit. The book, I guess, isn't finished, but we turned in an edit to a publisher for them to read and let us know if they want to publish it.
I would almost consider it a rough draft, like the best rough draft that it's been since day one.
The way that I have tended to think about it is sort of in like music terms. And I feel like we just turned in the demo. Yeah. And now,
that's a good one.
Now she's like the producer who's going to go work their magic on the demo and bring us a rough mix for us to work on.
Either, right. It is one of those moments where you hand your baby to someone else and you're just waiting for them to say it's cute.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, your baby's so cute. Oh, you like it?
But like actually mean it.
This is not. And the cool part about something like this is, the investing behind it is so big that no one's going to tell you your baby's cute when it's ugly.
Right.
I mean, they might.
They might, but hopefully not.
But usually they see something in it,
Yes.
But it was big, though. And part of it was working on it while I was being a stay-at-home dad, which is those moments where I blinked and I was like, what? It's 8 o'clock or what?
Now I have to stay up for multiple hours.
And I would.
To edit.
It was wild.
And so would I.
And you would too. Or when we were pregnant, I would be writing for 2-3 hours after I got home from that one warehouse job I had. I think I added it up, and it was, since we started working on the book, it was 29 days, 26 days, somewhere in there. I forget it was real close, right in there. And I'm not going to say that it was every day for 5 or 6 hours, but there were days that I put in easily 5 to 7 hours.
For sure.
I would work on it for an hour every day at lunch. So for however, I would think I worked at that place for a year.
Yeah.
Excluding Saturdays and Sundays. Even though I worked on a Saturday, I didn't type because it was only like a short amount of time there. But I would, every day, Monday through Friday, I typed at lunch.
Yeah.
I would stuff my face on the way to the car, hop in the car, or sit on the loading dock and
Yep.
And then I'd come home. And when you were pregnant, I didn't have to do much. You just were laying there. I mean,
feeling crappy.
Working
from home, and then
we would eat quick dinner or something, and then I would go into that room and just start.
Yep.
And I think I got the full first draft out, and then we edited it. So it was an undertaking for sure. It wasn't like something that I think at first I was like, oh, it will be hard, but it won't be that hard. Because it like
proved you wrong.
Well, the first 2-3 chapters came out real quick, and I was like, "Whoa, this is weird." Even though I wasn't a good writer, like there was no like. Don't get me wrong, what was coming out was poo.
It was stream of consciousness.
It really was.
Needed a lot of fine tuning.
Oh my god! I mean, even to the last edit, which I think was 8.
Well, it's like having a work tape in music.
Yeah.
So it's like you literally you go into a room and you write a song, and just so that you don't forget what like the melody and everything is supposed to be, you lay down an extremely rough guitar vocal. Yeah. And that to me is like what the first couple of passes of the book were.
Oh, yeah.
It was just like, oh, I have these ideas. I have to get them down on paper so that I don't lose this train of thought.
Well, and we were trying to get the first big train of thought out before we had our first child. So we were really like, it was one of those moments where it wasn't a crunch, but it was like, we have the story, we have all the things we want. I had 20 chapters. Everything was kind of actually 19 chapters at the time. I added one chapter in one of the last edits. And, I wanted to kind of bring this up tonight because it's such to me, I never thought I would ever write anything, let alone like a long text message.
Right. And look at this.
And here I am sitting 1,000 days later with a product that is now, I would almost say that I could put, if I really wanted to, I could just go on Amazon, the KDP publishing or whatever, and just like, all right,
here it is.
Let's self-publish. Boom. Here we go. See what happens.
And not to knock self-publishing, but that's just not the route we're trying to go right now.
Well, I think that to me, there's an amazing group of people that do that, and it is a different world. But, it's not. I think a lot of the self-publishing that people talk about on KDP or that Kindle KPD, I don't know, whatever. It's Kindle something publishing. I feel like a lot of it's a lot of people who are nonfiction.
Yeah, fiction. You don't see a whole lot of fiction self-published.
You don't, and I think it's because fiction, I think, takes a little finesse when it comes to getting it to the mainstream audience. I think you really want to have that backing. Not to say that you can't do it, but or that people haven't done it, because obviously, J.K. Rowling, right? Didn't she self-publish?
J.K. Rowling, I think so.
I don't know.
And then 50 Shades of Grey, I think at first was self-published as well.
It's possible, but I think the moral to my point was it needs so many more fine tunings that I would be doing myself an injustice if I just said, this is good.
Right.
And that was my point to saying that. It wasn't that it's never been done before, but being a person who was not a good writer, nor a good speaker, nor a good, I don't have all of those qualities that a lot of those other writers do. And so what I need is I have a really good editor right now, Desi, and she and you have really helped me fine tune my noise in my brain to words on a page, voice.
Yes.
And I think that is the coolest thing that I've seen happen. And so though Desi's a professional, though you're a professional in the music industry. Desi's...
I'm definitely not a professional in the writing / book industries.
And that's what it takes, though, when you start wanting to go to different levels. Because, again, I could just take my book and say, all right, here, it's on Amazon now. All my friends, if you want to go buy my book, go buy it. But there's no push, though. I still, just because I get a publishing deal potentially doesn't mean that now I'm famous.
Right.
I still have to do a big push anyways. I would have to do a big push if I self-published. So I might as well get as many people on my team as possible. And that's why we're going the publishing route, is because
that's why we're trying to.
Is because we want it to be something more, and that lies that that professional, that one more professional person looking at this book saying, okay, you did this good, but this chapter, and that's what's happening right now with the book. It's really, and I'm not going to say she's tearing it apart, but I bet you she's
I'm sure she'll have edits
going
and notes.
Through it with a fine tooth comb. And which she should, though.
Yeah.
It would be.
We want her to do that.
And it's not for me because, well, it is for me, but it is for the readers. The end product is for, if you want to go back to, music speak, you master a CD or a track because you want the listeners to have the best ultimate experience.
Right.
And I think that's where, you look at a product like Dolby. Over the years, Dolby has been the leading, music platform for when it comes to movies and all these things. And and here they go. They reinvent themselves again. They come out with this thing called like Dolby Atmos.
Yeah, the Atmos is awesome.
You guys have one of those studios.
We do.
And it's incredible when you go in there because you're like, oh, I've heard this song before. But then you hear it in there and you're like,
I've never heard music played this way.
How is this so cool?
Yeah, and for our listeners who don't know what Atmos is, it's basically you hear the music all around you. It's designed where you have the music not only sound like it's one side to the other side and like
left
pans, but it's above you, below you, behind you, in front of you. It's
because there's
all
been
around.
7.1, which is around you, but no one's done really
above
spatial 360, encompassing kind of sound. It's really cool. And I think that, but when you go into that studio, you need someone who's familiar with Dolby Atmos to tell you, this is how you
have to have an engineer who knows what they're doing. And it's interesting. Our engineer that we work with at Starstruck, his name's Derek, and he is phenomenal. And he has done like every Carrie Underwood record. He has remixed for Atmos a bunch of Luke Bryan stuff. We work with him on all kinds of things. I mean, he's done all the things.
Yeah.
But he was telling us that, he is a very, very experienced engineer.
Yeah.
And when he was asked to go back and remix all of Carrie Underwood's catalog into Atmos, he had to learn how to do that. It wasn't like you could just push some buttons and figure it out. He had to put in hours and hours and hours of understanding how spatial audio is different than the rest. Just like you've had to put in hours and hours and hours and hours figuring out how to translate what's in your imagination onto paper and then go back and fix it over and over and over again so that it flows properly and truly tells the story that you're trying to convey.
I think one of the coolest things I've learned since starting this project is there's what I could remember from like grade school and middle school and high school from writing a paper. It's like, paragraphs. But I also didn't pay attention on it, so maybe they said other words. But
I'm sure they did. I'm sure they taught you more than just paragraphs.
But to me, when I first started, it was like, oh, here's this train of thought for this motion. Okay, so I at least had a body, but whoa, there's so much into fiction writing that there's so much more detail when it comes to fiction writing. There's like Chicago style, and then Desi was telling me words and terms of how I was writing, and I was like, I don't know, I'm just writing.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, you're doing it in this style, and it is such a good feeling to be taught something at 40 that now I can have for the rest of my life, but I can also grow also.
Yeah, and keep learning.
And I heard I like to row and listen to Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, and all these guys, and I like to listen to all the motivational guys, Gary Vee, and all of them, right? And I'd stumble upon this Jordan Peterson one. He was talking about, one of the coolest things about growth and is letting go, like dying. Parts of you have to die so you can learn other stuff.
Yeah,
you can't just continually
you have to leave
grow
stuff behind.
Yeah, and so it's kind of cool, even though maybe I'm losing touch with audio or things that don't necessarily play a big part of my life anymore. I'm now growing in a different manner.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like different limbs of me, of my tree, are now starting to blossom, which I think is even a more rad thing, because I always looked at writing and reading and all that stuff kind of nerdy. It's so, I don't know, there's something very bold about it.
Yeah.
There's something very honest about it, because I'm able to go deep into my imagination and pull stuff out that, sure, it might not be real, like outside these four walls, but it's real though.
Yeah.
It's like as real as real can be, in a way,
absolutely.
because it is a thought, and me and my crazy thoughts where
you do have some interesting thoughts sometimes.
We were living in someone else's dream, and
let's not even go down that road. We'll be off on a tangent for way too long.
But I've been blessed with something, and God gave me this book, this idea, and I'm not that special of a person to think that I dreamt this up magically.
Right.
And every time I turn around, new thoughts and new imagination come to me, and I'm able to now, I know how to translate it to paper, at least to where it's not, 7th grade Phil writing a book report.
Oh, you've grown so much since you started back in April of 2020.
Yeah. And it's
so
fun.
Much.
It's fun too because now I can, even when I'm like watching TV or I'm listening to like sportscasters and stuff. One thing I've really enjoyed is listening to how different people use language, and it's real cool to pick up words and understand like, oh, whoa, I see where that word fits really cool. I've seen it before because I read now a lot more too than I ever have. So, which is crazy because going back to this whole dad thing at home, I'm tired a lot of times. But, but this, when they say, they always say like, oh, when you find something you love, it doesn't
find
feel like work.
And
it's true. Like I really do enjoy the writing part of this, and me, like you'll be like, all right, I'm gonna go brush my teeth and get in bed, and I'll be like, oh, I'll be in like 10 minutes. I just have to finish this one paragraph.
And then like an hour later,
hour or two
I'm like
later,
almost asleep.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I just like got on this weird tangent. I knocked out like 3 or 4 pages.
But it's great when you're able to get into a flow like that. You don't want to break the creative stream that's happening.
Yeah. And it's weird to think that my life is going down that way because let's be real. Who hasn't imagined themselves as a famous actor or a famous musician or wanted to be in the shoes of someone who is of that kind of caliber? But I always wanted it the easy way. I always wanted to like, oh, let me be a DJ so I can just stand behind this thing and push button.
Yeah.
And
the infamous phone call. Babe, I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to be a DJ. I'm going to buy this like multiple $1,000 rig and just like push some buttons. No, that's not how that works.
I know now.
Yes.
But it's fun to be creative now and think about, look, success is on that spectrum. That's a whole different conversation. But to be successful enough right now in life that I get to stay home with the kids, I get to sit behind a laptop and type words from my imagination onto paper, or onto a paper on my screen.
Yeah, basically
digital paper. But that digital paper now is in someone's hands, and the potential behind that is crazy.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the coolest part to like anything that someone puts their mind to is the potential behind it. It's like, man, I'd really love to open up an ice cream shop. Like, okay, well, that's a really cool idea, but there's a lot of ice cream shops. So what's going to set you apart?
How are you going to differentiate?
Yeah, like and then when you start letting your imagination go, you're like, oh yeah, but we'll have this and this, and do it. Because I think that that's what's important. Like those are those moments that like game change people. Like Haagen-Dazs.
Haagen-Dazs.
Yeah, that guy. Wherever he was, I'm pretty sure he's from Germany, right?
Sounds about right.
Or Switzerland, let's just say.
Somewhere.
His ice cream one day, he probably was like, oh, I got this crazy idea for vanilla. And everyone's like, vanilla? Over it. Create something new. And he's like, nah, you got to taste this vanilla.
Vanilla bean.
And I'm not going to lie. That Dawes guy and his...
There's no G.
Dawes. That Dawes guy. And he has a good vanilla.
He does.
Because he probably thought it through.
Probably.
He sat there and edited.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this. The hardest part about watching my book go to someone else and then getting it back is having the words say, you need to cut this. This is too much. Or this sting. No, but it's a good thing, though. Self-editing is hard.
Thankfully, you take constructive criticism really well.
I do take constructive criticism.
You really do.
I will ask the question. I might be like, well, why?
Yeah.
Like I might have a why in there before I do it. But I always understand that my view of something also needs another person's maybe even 2, maybe even 3. Like I like to know that. But then I would also like to have the why did you want it cut? Or what didn't you like about this? Could I add this somewhere else? Could I write it better? It would
right.
And I think that's what a lot of people miss maybe when they take criticism is that they just take the criticism and be like, oh, that person hated it.
Right.
But it's like, we'll
no,
ask
that's
them
not
first.
it.
Ask them why they didn't like what it was.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been like I've been able to grow in that way. It's taught me patience. I still could use more patience in my life, but I have way more patience in my life than I've ever had ever. Forever ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been really cool. So I know that we were chatting about what we were going to talk about, and not that, and I don't know if all the listeners have heard the whole story, and I think there's more to it, but this is a big part to the story was the time that we put into it.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is that we haven't actually scratched the surface of probably
we still have so much work to do. So much work.
Like you have now we're not done editing it for one. So there's going to be more edits, which is crazy to think. I have a personal thing that I want to do to it. So it's even crazy.
You've got changes to make that are going to require more edits.
So it's even crazy because even internally, the minute I hit send on that email, I was like, wait, hold on.
Wait, I just came up with a really great idea that's going to change the whole book.
Well, not change the whole book, but it definitely adds
it in some ways.
It adds a really cool perspective,
it does.
I think. And but I do believe, though, that part of it is getting it back and having the opinion of, what do you think of it as this version? Then going and saying, well, what do you think about it if we add this one aspect?
Right.
Because then I think because if we just came with it that one way, it might be like, oh, I don't know. Now there's two different thought processes.
Right.
To it, so we get to kind of bounce back and forth between those,
which
I think it's cool.
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
Do you like this guitar or this guitar?
Right. Is it because it makes this sound or that sound? Yeah.
And being maybe the analytical thinker that I am, I think things like that are important when you have a little bit of like choice, and though it's not a technical choice, it is a technical choice in a way that it is a movement inside of this thought.
Right. I mean, I can't wait to see where it all goes. I can't wait to get it back from this publisher and hear what they think.
And we've
see what their comments
we've
might
had one very, very important person give it back to us who is in the TV film world, and that's where the first real big edit came. That's where we really pumped the brakes and we said, "Oh, okay, hold on."
Yeah.
Which I could have been completely mad about and said, "No, this is the way it is, and this is how it's going to go, and this is what I want." But she had such a good point that there was no way that I could.
Yeah.
It would have been a very ignorant thing of me to think that my first book, I was going to magically come out of the gate.
Yeah. Ta-da! I wrote this big hit and I only had to edit it 3 times.
I'm Stephen King.
Ta-da!
I'm Philip King.
I'm Philip King. Yeah. Doesn't really work that way.
But yeah, the days just keep adding up, because the other part to it is that though now I've turned something in, well, I already am in the works with something else, but at the same time behind that, now it's all the marketing details and the ideas of, well, okay, so what do we do here? It's running the Instagram page and making sure that, okay, now we need to start truly getting an email list together. And how can we sell this to someone and give them something different than
that's
every
worth
other writer?
Their money.
Yeah, that's worth. Yeah, like
versus just a book.
Yeah, especially since like I could be like, oh well, I'm gonna sign it. I'm nobody.
Right? Who cares?
My signature, like
that's nice.
The bank doesn't even like my signature some days.
That's true.
But that's where I think that we as a team and the people that we're surrounding ourselves with are trying our hardest to give our reader something really cool to take home.
Something special and unique, and something that goes to show that we really value the fact that they are spending their very hard-earned money
100%
on something that we put a lot of love and care into.
100%. the podcast too, though, when we first started, I think it was hard for people to see why we started it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for people to listen to someone and be like, well, why is he preaching all this like goals and all these things and all these, go out there and change your life and work hard.
You can do anything.
And you can do anything. It's hard for people to understand that when all I kept saying was like, well, we're working on this project. I have this project.
Right.
But I think in the long run, the podcast isn't here so we then turn around and like, okay, now subscribe to us and pay us more money. It's like, no, the podcast is to showcase the journey to everybody.
Right.
Like this
and have people go on the journey with us.
This is a free, cool journey that if you've ever wanted to do something and you're scared, well, so was I. Mm-hmm. I still am.
For sure.
I'm terrified some days of putting out this product that I should say it's never been done, but it's never been done this way before. Mm-hmm. And the first person to say that was someone who you hold very dear and someone that I think is very important. Mm-hmm. And they were like, wow, I've never heard of that before. Mm-hmm. So it was like, okay, maybe we're onto something. But still, that doesn't mean that it's sellable or that It's like people are just going to flock to it. It's going to take work and effort and all these. So that's why this podcast is so, I think, special to me when I give it to people or when we put it out on the airwaves. It's not like, oh, here's another guy just preaching to me about how to hit a goal. It's like, no, I'm going through these goals with you.
Right.
Like,
well, and when you say the part about like being scared and stuff, it makes me think of the quote that we have on our mirror in our bathroom. We have a whole bunch of like motivational quotes and things that are written on paper that we have taped to the mirror in our bathroom. So we read them every day.
They've been there for 1,000 days almost.
Yeah, basically. And one of them, and I'm paraphrasing, but it says something to the effect of, if you're not scared, you're not growing. Is that what it says?
It's Jimmy Iovine. And he says,
one of my
if you're not frightened,
favorites.
You're not original.
If you're not frightened, you're not original.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're scared. I'm also scared. Not scared for you, but scared because, I mean, I'm your manager and I have never managed a writer before. I have ventured into the book world very briefly, but that was for a client who wrote a children's book, which is a totally different experience.
Yeah.
And her being a very famous artist, different doors open for you to have meetings with different people to give you a leg up.
100%.
And that's just the way that is.
It's the way everywhere.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm scared too because I want to do a good job for you and for this book that you've worked so hard on. And besides the fact that I'm your manager, you're my husband and the father of my children. So it's kind of like, okay, well, there's a whole lot riding on all of this and not just managing a client. So I get it.
I know. And I thank you for taking on the challenge because for me, it is more than just a paycheck. Mm-hmm. It's something that, for one, it could be around forever, potentially, if it's good enough.
Hopefully, yeah.
and I believe in it. I think that's part of it, though, is that I have such strong conviction towards what I'm doing that I know that it will be something. It just is a matter of how much more effort I'm willing to put into it.
Yeah.
And if anybody knows me, then they know that I'm willing to, I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to walk.
Absolutely.
I'm willing to walk the mile and then 10 more and then 10 more and then, oh, you need me to go 4 more. Oh, there's 10 more after that. Okay,
I'm going to keep going.
And that's the way it is, though.
I can't walk anymore.
But I think that any person who has started a business or gone down something like that, like a weight loss journey, you don't just lose weight one time. You lose weight and then you have to fight it off for the rest of your life.
Yeah, for sure.
Because if you don't, then it's going to come back.
It's going to come back.
That is that journey, though, and that is those hard moments that I'm not going to say separate the winners from the losers, but they definitely separate something. And the people that go down that harder path, I feel like have at least a better shot of their potential to be heard or seen or done or last a generation, 2 generations, whatever it may be. I mean, nothing lasts forever, I should say. I mean, like eventually, like all great empires, they've crumbled and stuff like that. And tend to fall apart.
Or your kid eats them.
Or your kid eats them.
That's also crazy to think, is that we were newly married when you started writing this book. And now we've had 2 children.
Yeah. Yeah. It has been a journey. And I think that's the point, though. That's what this podcast is about. It's to showcase all of this journey. The fatherhood part, you're a manager part, the growing, and you still have a lot of responsibility outside of not only this, me and then the kids and then the household, but you have a lot of responsibility with artists and stuff too. So your journey is important to all of the listeners out there that have ever wanted to step into a management position.
Yeah.
There's a lot to this podcast that isn't just, listen to us talk for 20, 30, 40 minutes, whatever it may be, about whatever. Sometimes it's better than others, but sometimes I think there's a lot of positivity in there that people can grab. And yeah, so it is funny to look at it all now and see, like, wow, it's all kind of tying together now. I was and that's that scared part. Like when we first started the podcast, it was like, how are we ever going to get it to tie together with a book?
Like, what are we going to do?
Because
this?
A manager from another author told us that we needed a podcast. I mean, we didn't just like, we need a podcast.
No,
someone told us. Oh, you're writing a book. Go start a podcast.
You should start a podcast. Okay. We don't know anything about that.
And we didn't. But then, my friend Brittany, we
hadn't even listened to podcasts at that point.
I'd listened to the one podcast that got me to
just started.
That got me to write a book.
Yeah. I had never listened to a podcast yet.
So, I mean, here we are. But that's the point, though. And that's why I think this episode was important. It was like, sure, we can. The book is amazing. And I could talk about the book every day for hours if you ask me to. I could tell you all the little things and how I did it and all the fun stuff. But I'm not. The only thing I'm ever going to try to sell anybody is the book.
Right.
This podcast is free. It's going to be free forever. It's like, I don't think of this platform as anything more than a way for me to engage with the listener, the readers, the listeners, friends, family, anybody like that.
Strangers, all the things.
But that's the point, though, is I think that this is fun. The book is fun. All of this together is fun.
Totally.
And then everything outside of this is fun, too. So for right now, like, life's pretty fun.
It's something.
Go Arsenal.
Go Arsenal. Okay.
I got a new jersey, so I'm showing it off.
It looks good.
Thanks.
I like it.
All right. Well, here's to the next 1,000 days.
Here's to the next 1,000 days, because we've definitely got at least 1,000 more days.
I mean,
of working on everything. Journey only just beginning.
I mean, we're trying to get it out this year, but like I said, there's so many little details to making something,
and we want to do it right.
And it'll never be perfect.
Never perfect.
But it will.
But we want to get it.
But we want to get it to a point where we say, I don't know if I could add any more changes.
Or change anything else.
I don't know if I could change. I probably could.
It feels ready.
I've read it 300 times.
times.
I mean, I've read that book so many times.
Same.
It's good, though.
It is so good.
It still makes me cry.
Can't wait to share
what's crazy is that I've teared up reading my own words, which is weird.
I have also teared
It's weird.
Up
It is a weird. When I typed it, I didn't tear up.
But then reading
going back and
there are parts of it that are very emotional.
Yeah. There's definitely a couple where I can think right now.
Oh, I know.
So it's just weird to look at something and have emotion be brought in, like to myself. I'm like, whoa, I wrote that?
Based on something completely fictional that you made up in your brain.
10 years ago, I couldn't write a text message without someone being like, are you dumb?
What?
Did you go to school? Did you pass 4th grade?
Wait a minute.
So, all right. Cheers. Bottoms up. Thank you for listening every week.
Thanks, everybody.
Now we're to every 2 weeks, so thank you for listening every 2 weeks.
Yes.
But if you replay this the next week, it's like you get to listen to us every week.
That's true.
I'm sorry.
Have a wonderful week, everybody.
Cheers and bottoms up.
Bye.
Here's the best soda ever in the world. Diet Cherry 7-Up. 0 sugar. Sorry, it's not diet. Yeah.
Zero sugar. Cherry 7-Up. There you go. Cheers. Bottoms up. Bye.